Endpoint Office Hours. It is September 12th, 2023. And Arnab, take it away. We're excited to have you here talking about macOS management with Intune.
All right, let me share my screen. Let me know once it's coming through.
Yeah, we got you.
All right, so hello everyone. My name is Arnav Biswas. I'm a senior product manager on the Intune team, specifically focused on our Mac management story in Intune. And I'm very excited to be talking to you today, specifically to an education audience where we're usually mostly talking. There's a lot of conversations going on around the enterprises. So it's really interesting. And I'm looking for feedback from this group as to the investments that we're making, how those are faring in the education space as well. So before diving into our roadmap, I want to start off by talking about how we think about Mac management in Intune. So our goal is, and our really vision is to provide the best Microsoft 365 experience on Macs, along with a single pane of glass experience for all the platforms that you manage. And as you're aware, if you're already using Microsoft 365, Intune really is the Zero Trust foundation in Microsoft 365, and that is also applicable on Macs. And Mac management is fairly new when you compare it to other desktop platforms. And Intune Mac management was born in the cloud. It is a cloud-native solution. And that means that first and foremost, we support that the built-in macOS capabilities that lets IT secure Mac using the macOS capabilities. And that means, in terms of support, that means day zero support for new OS, new device configuration and settings as they become generally available through Apple. And device compliance and conditional access are built on the MDM foundation that then evaluates the overall risk of the device to the protected resources. But we have also learned and know that the platform alone does not meet the more advanced or custom IT needs, which is why we started investing in the Intune macOS agent back in 2020, and we have been making great strides in there by building in extensible functionalities that supplement what is available through the macOS platform. And the objective of the Intune agent is not only to enable advanced IT scenarios, but to also provide trusted signals to other Microsoft 365 services that then enable advanced M365 scenarios across your M365 ecosystem. And of course, Intune is also supportive of any open source projects. We are lucky that in the Mac management space, there are a ton of great open source options out there, and they are widely used across the education and enterprise space. And we want to make sure that those you can easily augment those experiences within Intune as well. So with that framing, now let me dig into what we have been working on lately. So the next couple of slides basically go over what are our recent updates, so things that we have released recently, say over the last roughly 1 year. And then the next slide kind of covers what is coming up. And these are the summary slides of what I will dive into each of these bullet points. But the main points that I really want you to take away from these slides really are that we are investing in scalable solutions across the Apple ecosystem in Intune. If you look at the new declarative device management protocol, That is Apple's new V2 protocol in MDM, and also our device configuration, new device configuration architecture, which is totally extensible and automated. All of these really help us build scalable solutions and build in engineering efficiencies. And so the second point there is about consistent experiences. So whether you're picking up an iPhone, iPad, or Mac, we want the experience to be as consistent as possible. And we're starting there with the platform that we're building in. And in terms of experience, that also means that we are, where possible, we are investing in service-based experiences, web-based experiences, so that you don't have multiple client apps or multiple apps that even we need to go maintain. Whereas if we had a single web-based solution, a service-based solution, that's a lot easier to keep consistent and maintain over time. And all of that really then helps us free up our resources to then go build more differentiated experiences for our Apple ecosystem. And so, and when thinking about the experiences for Mac, we really think of it as how are we investing across the life cycle of the Mac, of a Mac device that is managed. So this year we are focusing on the provisioning experiences of the device and servicing of the device. So what I mean by that is if you are starting with a new device, getting the user from an out-of-box experience to a device that is fully functional and running, and you have the confidence that the device has been fully set up. That is what we consider provisioning. And by servicing, I mean the ability to update the device or troubleshoot the device as needed, and so that the user can get back to being productive. So let's look at what we are currently working on in our onboarding. So the most anticipated feature perhaps is platform SSO. It is the ability to log in with your AAD or Microsoft Entra ID password. And if you're already aware of the SSO extension that was announced by Apple a few years ago, and that we built the single sign-on experiences on, Platform SSO takes that a step further to then enable not just SSO across apps, but also use the password that you have for your AAD account and sync that to the local account. So it almost creates the Windows-like experience where you can now sign in using your AAD password on the Mac. And that is great because now from an admin perspective, that means you no longer need to manage multiple passwords. You can simply manage the AAD password, since that is the main one that would be synced to the device. And from a security perspective, this is phishing resistant because the device keys are hardware bound on each device. And Platform SSO requires AAD joining the Mac, which is technically different from how you workplace join a Mac today. So both are kind of, we colloquially call it AAD registration, but AAD joining a Mac essentially is a new kind of registration with Azure Active Directory that actually uses the secure enclave on the device for protecting the keys rather than just keeping it in the keychain, which can still be backed up to iCloud. And Platform SSO is enabled using MDM, so it requires an enrolled device and configuration of the MDM device configuration payload, which is shown here on the right side. And so currently Platform SSO is in private preview, and it is expected to be available in a public preview later this year, I believe towards the end of November. Now, the Platform SSO feature that is currently in private preview covers the V1 capabilities of Platform SSO. These were features that were originally released by Apple back in WWDC 2022. And if you attended WWDC 2023 a couple of months ago, Apple announced a bunch of very welcome improvements to Platform SSO. So these are features that are available on macOS 14, but also requires the V2 implementation of Platform SSO in the SSO extension. So the improvements are in authentication method previously, or in addition to using password and secure enclave key, now smart card authentication is also allowed. So if you're using smart card authentication, this is now usable through the Platform SSO experiences. And one of the second one is one of the big pieces of feedback that we had provided to Apple, which is unlike Windows, you couldn't really directly log in using your AAD account on an AAD joined device. So Apple has solved this for a second user onwards. And what I mean by that is the device still needs to be provisioned for Platform SSO. So it has to be enrolled, it has to be AAD joined. And only then, from the second user onwards, you can log in using your Entra ID, and your user will be created right at that point without requiring a local account creation. So that is a very welcome improvement to the experience, and something I would like to see also brought to the first user, but that's hopefully in the future. And another improvement there is admin configurable authorization mode. So as you know, on a Mac, you can have a user as a standard user or an admin user. So Apple has actually made that MDM configurable through Platform SSO. And so that means you can define the new user who's logging in, should they have standard user rights or admin rights, or should they have a custom group of rights? So maybe they can only install apps from the App Store, or install software updates that are available to them without giving them full-on admin access, and still be able to do action that a standard user won't be able to. So this kind of push into the privilege management space is really a welcome improvement for Macs, and also be able to configure it via MDM. It's great to see how Apple is thinking about it. While all of these are great, I want to highlight that the current preview that is available is based on Platform SSO 1.0, and it doesn't yet support these new settings, but our goal is, with our public preview that will be available later this year, we want to support Platform SSO 2.0, and macOS 14 should be generally available then, so you can try out some of these new features. And especially for this audience, I think that the V2 improvements are super critical, because if you have education devices where you have multiple users logging in, you can now if you have AAD users for your students, they can directly be able to log in onto those Macs without you having to create local accounts for each of the different users on those devices. So it really opens up a whole new set of shared device scenarios that we will also be looking at in the future. Next is local account management. So this is another long-awaited feature that has been on our list, and we are excited to say that we'll finally be getting this out in preview early next year. This enables the admin to create and configure the first admin account or the primary account on devices that are going through automated device enrollment. So today, if you enroll an ADE Mac in Intune, it requires you to, it pops up the dialog to you to fill in the information for your local admin account and what the local password will be. And having Platform SSO kind of addresses that a little bit, because that is the local password you create is really quite temporary. But this is really the solution that many customers have been asking for, which is the ability to push the local admin account and primary account from MDM so that that account doesn't have to be created manually. And in addition, what we want to follow up on that feature is bringing the Labs integration for Mac. So that is an experience that is, I believe, available with Windows. But for we see that there's a lot of value in bringing the password management experience to Mac as well. So that is something that will be we'll be following up next year. And on when we are, as we are supporting the local account creation via MDM, part of that is also the ability to support await configuration on automated device enrollment. So what that means is using this MDM key, Intune is able to create more secure onboarding experiences by gating the user on the delivery of the required payloads that the admin has configured. So let me tell you, like today, when you enroll the Mac, once the device is enrolled, the local account is created, the user is kind of put on the desktop, and while the device is still syncing with Intune, getting all its profiles. This with await configuration that can become more secure as the user could have an experience where they are awaiting the full configuration of the device before they are allowed to use the device. So that gives a little more control to the admin as to when they would like the user to be able to use the device. And this is also expected in along with the local account management feature set. And we are also bringing something we call just-in-time compliance. So this, you may be familiar with this on iOS, where the premise of the feature is that usually if you are in a non-compliance state, the end user has to be taken away from whatever they're trying to access to an experience where they need to now go fix whatever the reason is that they're non-compliant for. And that does not lead to a great end user experience, because we don't have a great way to bring the user back to whatever they were trying to get to. So the idea of just-in-time compliance is to build the compliance detection and compliance remediation experience within whatever M365 app the end user is trying to access, and be able to show them the reason for non-compliance within that. So this is something that's already available with iOS, and we'll also be bringing that consistency to Mac, which means that on macOS, the company portal app will no longer be required to be launched to deal with compliance remediation. And this really improves the end user experience from that aspect. Another improvement we are bringing to onboarding is web enrollment for Mac. So this is again, like today, the experience for if you are going through manual enrollment is the experience starts in Outlook or some protected app that then tells you to install the company portal. But imagine in a world where you have web enrollment, we could, similar to the just-in-time compliance experience, we could show you an enrollment experience within the app itself without having to then go download the company portal app. And this will basically be able to download the enrollment profile without requiring the company portal. All right, so let's talk about configuration. So in the so I talked about how we are investing in our new device configuration architecture. So you might know this device configuration architecture as settings catalog. And to give you a little bit of background, like before we had settings catalog, all our engineers were basically building new settings as Apple released them, and it used to take us multiple sprints to actually build support for those, because we not only had to build the new UI and the logic that went underneath, and that also meant that there were more issues that required testing, and it needed a lot more debugging. But with the settings catalog, we have now automated it to the point where when Apple releases a new setting in the form of YAML, we get notified, whereas our settings ingestion engine can pick up the new set of settings and absorb that into our JSON, which is then converted by the settings catalog engine into the UX. So it's basically built on this schema-based architecture. And as long as the setting matches the schema, it takes us just hours to build new settings, where it used to take us months. So we have used this to our advantage to really bridge the gap that we used to have on macOS settings, and we now support pretty much all the settings that are out there supported by Apple. So yeah, this has been great, and a great example is macOS 14 is not out yet, but the settings that Apple announced back in WWDC 23, those are already available in settings catalog today. All right, so yeah, these are the new day zero settings that you can expect to see. So we have some new regular expressions that Apple announced; those are available. New platform SSO settings that I touched upon before, and yeah, these are all related to platform SSO, and these are new restrictions that Apple gave us control over. The next big update is the push towards declarative device management. So if you saw a couple of years ago, Apple made a big push towards declarative device management for iOS, iPadOS. And this year, they are bringing that to macOS. So we heard from Apple that they were really investing in declarative device management and bringing that across the board to all of Mac MDM. And so it starts with software update, but also applies to resource access, so certificate management and the app infrastructure and so on. So we are, for macOS specifically, we are focused on supporting declarative software updates first. And we are also looking at other payloads of certificates and app management for declarative device management. So the software declarative software updates basically allows you to have a more configurable experience, both for the admin and also for the end user. I should have really added some screenshots here for the end user side. But there is unlike before, there is now an experience for the end user where they are notified for when the deadline is for an install as configured by IT admin, and the details that you define here are visible to the end user within the just native macOS experience. So it leads to a much tighter software update experience than we are used to on macOS. Oh, and the main point, I forgot to land that, is because it is declarative device management, it means that when you push down this policy, the device itself takes charge of when to enforce this update without communicating with the Intune service. And that is great because as we move towards a declarative model, it requires less of an interaction between the device and the service to enforce these settings. And that means lesser round trips with the service and lesser kind of logic building on the service side as well. And the device also becoming a lot more secure when it knows what to do, even when there are malicious users that are trying to cut off network access or just breaking the connection between the service and the device. So a declarative device management is really going to help us with just the device knowing what its intended state is to be, and also from a security standpoint. My last section is about apps. If you have been looking at our macOS developments over the last few years, we have made some very fundamental improvements to how we think about app management. If I rewind us back to 2-3 years ago, we only had support for the ability to deploy applications through using the install application command. And that also required using the Intune app wrapping tool, which could only be used on Mac and had its own limitations as to what types of packages it could be used on. So first of all, we have removed the need to use the app wrapping tool, and that means you no longer have to use a Mac to deploy any Mac applications, which is huge. And also, you don't have to learn a new tool. The Intune UI is able to do all of that on its own. And secondly, we have then with our macOS agent, we took that a step further. We heard from customers that the apps that only PKG apps were not sufficient to cover the base for the most common applications that they were looking to deploy. And even within the install application command, the kind of PKGs that you could deploy were quite limited. So anything that was that had multiple applications in it, or apps that had a hierarchical structure, those could not be installed, and apps that were unsigned. So we looked at all of that, and we went and built a new app deployment pipeline that basically did not depend on the application pipeline for MDM. So this was the macOS agent-based app deployment pipeline. And since then, we have built support for deploying DMG apps. So any DMG that contains one or more apps are supported. And we have, and the DMG support is currently generally available. And we have recently rolled out the ability to deploy PKG installers. So this is called unmanaged apps in the Intune UI, but it basically means it has the ability to deploy any kind of package that may or may not be deployable through the line of business workflow. And this simply uses the built-in installer command. And we are just about to release the ability to add your own pre and post install scripts in October. And yeah, our goal really is, if there is an app that you can locally install running the installer command, we need to be able to make that deployable through Intune. So this is still, I would say, a work in progress, even though I think we're somewhere like 90% there. So if you come across an app that you cannot deploy using our new flexible PKG installer path, please give us that feedback so that we can debug that and really understand what we need to do to improve that. Yeah, so this is a little more deeper into the installer command support. So I already talked about that the idea of having the installer command support is so that you can deploy non-flat packages, component packages, and unsigned packages, and you will no longer need to have to sign any in-house packages that you have built. And the line of business application path that uses the MDM install command will continue to remain supported. And last but not the least, if you have not heard, we recently created a Microsoft Mac admins community in Viva Engage. And we welcome you all to join the community. It's a great cohort of many of our customers or people who just want to know where Microsoft is going with our overall Microsoft story about Mac devices. All it requires is an M365 account. And unfortunately, if I provided a link, the link would not work if you're not part of Microsoft, since it's still part of Viva Engage at Microsoft. So you would have to email the email this distribution list here to get added. And we have an automation that adds people every week. And for me personally, I think just having customers engage on this platform and give direct feedback and learn from each other has also, I think, removed a lot of my own biases and also short-circuited a lot of the feedback that we would otherwise get in a very filtered fashion through our customer experience groups. So yeah, it's really a great group, and a lot of product groups also participate and follow the conversations that happen. So highly encourage you to be a part of the group. And yeah, so what I wanted you to take away from this session today is that we are paving the way for the best M365 experience on Macs. And we believe that any endpoint management needs that you have across the board are met in Intune. And if you see any of the platform changes that Apple is announcing, we are on top of that. We are making sure that we can really follow where the platform is going and also be able to build differentiation on top of that. So with that, are we seeing questions? Okay, I see. Sorry, I wasn't really keeping tabs on the chat here.
Hey, it's okay. So we do have a few questions if you've got time for them.
Yeah. That's yeah, we have 15 minutes.
Awesome. Yeah. So the first one's from Casey. Back when you were talking about platform SSO, he said, so the second user will have a cloud account on a local device, but the first user having a local account. Can you clarify?
Yes. So the idea there is the first user basically initiates with a local account. So I guess in the near future, when we'll have support for local users, so that means you'll be able to push your local users through MDM, but it still is a local account that is there for a little bit of time, and then when platform SSO comes down, you can sync that. Whereas for the second user onwards, you can be on the login screen and never touch that computer. You just come in and type in garrett@microsoft.com and you'll be able to sign in with your AAD username password, which is just like the Windows experience and what customers want.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could see all the reactions when you were talking about it, but I think that's like huge, right? Everyone's super excited about it.
Yeah, so are we.
Okay, so the second one is, does the just-in-time compliance feature work with app protection policies and unmanaged macOS devices? Or is it based on fully managed endpoints only?
Just in time. Okay, so the just-in-time compliance experience. That is a good
And if
question.
you don't
So
know, it's okay. We can always follow up.
For Mac, there is no app protection policy, so it would only apply to unmanaged and managed experiences. For iOS, I've not heard that there is an exception, but I think it'll be good to confirm with my team.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I also forgot that no app protection policies exist on macOS today. So
We'd love to have it if we could build it.
yeah, lots of feedback on that one. Okay, so going into one of the other areas when you were talking about the settings and the schema, is the settings and schema and examples available to make adjustments for our own environments? Or is that just a Microsoft?
It is currently just a Microsoft thing. I believe at least the Windows ones are available on GitHub. That I know Mike Donowski has a page the GitHub page that everybody talks about. I don't know if we have made the Mac ones available, but I think those are like the Apple ones are publicly available to be pulled. But if you want the JSON ones, I think I'll need to look into it if we have made those available. But from an Intune perspective, we the JSON that we consume is cannot be edited. That is just how it is consumed, and that's how we test it.
Awesome. I believe that everything that you talked about today operates just as on the Silicon M1 chip devices as well as the standard Intel-based Macs. Can you confirm or deny if that's all supported across the board?
Yes. So yeah, Intune supports both. I think we are rapidly seeing a shift towards Silicon, as Apple has basically moved their whole lineup to Apple Silicon now. But yeah, if you still have Intel devices, those should continue to work. I think when macOS 14 becomes generally available in a month or so, we will move to supporting 12 and above. But yeah, I think there are still supported devices that are Intel on 12.
It's good to know. Let's see. So I'm not sure, Arnab, if you're familiar with the Intune Suite and the new endpoint privilege management capabilities supporting macOS. I know that's been a hot item when we talk about EPM. Most customers ask if it's available for macOS. Do you have any visibility or knowledge on if or when that's coming?
Actually, yeah, there's one thing I did not talk about is our Intune Suite stuff that's happening. So so let me answer the EPM question. Yeah, EPM is currently very top of mind. And I think this is where we need to really think about what, like how we're thinking about it is like, what does the platform need? And we don't necessarily need to build just a feature for feature parity like Windows, because on Mac, like platform SSO is kind of, the way Apple is going, it really feels like that they are giving us some ways to do this built into the platform. So I think those will not necessarily become suite features, but we need to still think about, are there scenarios and customer requirements that Apple is not meeting, and is there an experience we can provide on top of that? So So yeah, to answer the question, yes, EPM for Mac is very much top of mind, and we are. And I'd love to hear from this group like what your feedback is. If you're seeing, if you're kind of, if you see that lack of EPM is a blocker to move to adopt the feature, like we need to hear that, and we'd love to work with you on that. And to go to the second point about Intune Suite is, so I didn't cover remote help, but that is something that is coming this year, and it'll first be available with just remote view only, and then support for remote control coming later. But that is remote help is one of the features, Intune Suite features, that was made available on Windows, and we are bringing macOS parity soon.
That's really exciting because I'm not sure if you're familiar, but EDU gets remote help for free. It's baked in. So everyone here has the remote help capability for free as part of their existing A3 and A5 licenses. So it's a huge ask to get that from macOS as well, right?
Yeah.
So very cool.
That's good to know. Yeah, I didn't know that EDU just has that built in.
EDU is special. We love
EDU.
Let's see. The next one is I'm gonna quote it verbatim. Still no love for oversized installers. So the line of business apps inside of Intune having that 2 gig app size limit. I actually just pinged you on the side about this last week. Any thoughts you can share with us?
Yes, I'd say 2 things. So one is that yes, I think we have kind of dug ourselves into a hole by like bringing in building all these great app experiences that now you are able to deploy more and more of your apps. So now we really need to think about, okay, yeah, now that we have allowed you to deploy all the different kinds of apps, like how do we allow you to deploy all the different sizes of apps? So yeah, this is definitely something top of mind for me, and I want to bring to our planning for next year. And that's number one. Number two, the other thing that we have dug ourselves into a hole is available experiences, which is huge, I know, for this education group as well, for app catalogs. So currently we are still lacking the way to deploy any of the agent-based applications into the company portal. So like just providing an app catalog. So all of the app experiences are still required apps. But yeah, my goal is to bring the same kind of consistent assignment experiences that you have with other app types and have that in for the agent-based app types as well.
And if it would help, we can always collect feedback from this group. So if we want to create a little form or something to help give you some of that feedback, we're happy to send that out to this community and get you some of that data. So, and if you are a managed customer and you have one of us assigned to your accounts and we talk regular, bring that up with us so that we can report that up through Intune Engineering as well as kind of build that case for that. So we'll definitely help you on that, whatever you need.
Awesome.
All right. And then the last one has to do with I think platform SSO and Apple IDs with specifics to managed Apple IDs, right? With Apple School Manager versus Apple Business Manager, but it's the same concept there for EDU. So do we need to sync that up with Azure AD logins? Do we need to federate that with Apple School Manager today? Federate Entra ID to ASM today? Things like that. Can you comment on?
I see.
On
You do not. For anything that I talked about, like platform SSO does not require you to federate. I think the only thing I would say you need a federation for is if you need to use managed Apple IDs, because I mean, so if you're not using any managed Apple ID scenario, sorry, I'm answering this wrong. But Apple requires you to use managed Apple IDs only if you have, say, user enrollment. And user enrollment is something that we have not gone on to support yet. So everything that actually covers the whole device management does not necessarily need managed Apple IDs. So everything I talked about is covered in that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Casey,
but like it's like the last EDU feature I had worked on was in the other world of shared iPads. And like, oh, that was the last thing that actually required federation. And I haven't actually touched anything that does yet since then.
Gotcha. Yeah, Casey, if I misunderstood your question, let us know and we'll get it answered. But I think that's it. And we are right at the end. So
Awesome.
I had a great time. This was awesome, Arnab. Thank you so much for coming and presenting on EDU Endpoint Office Hours. You got a lot of good reactions here. So a lot of stuff to look forward to, and really appreciate your hard work and dedication to, and really the commitment to making macOS a first-class citizen within Intune. And stay tuned. It looks like this second half of the year, kind of leading up to the beginning of the new year, it's going to be really exciting. So good stuff coming out. If there
Thank
are
you.
additional questions, don't forget we do have our communities questions channel inside of the team. Make sure you post those questions there. If there's something we didn't get answered today, ping it in there, and we'll get those answers for you all at a later date. But thank you all for attending. This is recorded, so we'll go back and make that available to you all. And again, Arnab, you rock, man. This was fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, and keep up all the great work.
Yeah, thank you. And like, yeah, if you always happy to hear feedback. So yeah, please let us know if there is anything specific that is specific to education that we need to take into account. That yeah, I'd love to hear about.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Y'all have a great day.
Thank
Have a
you
good
all.
one, Oak.
Take care.
See you in 2 weeks, everyone.